This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. We are rolling into the spring season, and we have three experts here to discuss it. To introduce them, Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
Thank you for that enthusiastic introduction, Susan. It's been nice working with you. We're going to rummage around the upcoming spring season tonight, tell you the shows to look out for, give you quite a bit of behind-the-scenes gossip with our panel of gossipy little theater people. Michael Musto of The Village Voice, Robert Simonson, the editor of Playbill Online, and Patrick Pacheco, New York One correspondent, contributing editor to Show People, LA Times correspondent.
I'm all over the place.
And creator of the Cheetah Rivera Show, A Dancer's Life, right, Patrick?
I wish I could take credit for it. It's a terrific show. But Terrence McNally, Graziella Danielle, and the wonderful Cheetah Rivera.
Well, I do want to quickly ask you, though, what is your involvement in the Cheetah Rivera Show exactly?
I think I'm credited for doing biographical research.
And that's what you did? You interviewed Cheetah? And
2 years ago, I sat down, lucky me, for 9 hours of intervws with Cheetah.
And the best they could do is that show?
I think they did a terrific job of that show.
When I do a show, I like to do this. Shop, dang, dang, dang. You're digging, you know.
Moving on to the spring season. Michael, we have two movie stars coming to Broadway. One is the biggest star, really, in our age, I guess, Julia Roberts.
Sandra Bullock.
Julia Roberts doing 3 Days of Rain, and the other is a sort of up-and-coming young movie star, Amanda Peet in Barefoot in the Park. Why do actresses who have big movie careers bother with Broadway?
I generally find that though they say, I've always wanted to do Broadway, this is my true love, it's usually when the movies aren't coming in the way they like them. Okay, I don't know if that's really the case in this case, but the interesting thing about Julia Roberts is everyone's gathering around to see, does she have it? Being a great movie star does not translate necessarily into a great stage star. It's a whole different ballgame. Nicole Kidman, I feel, had it in the Blue Room. And I bet that's when Tom Cruise probably sat there going, I'm dropping this bitch. I mean, she's really got it. She can act. I don't have it. Goodbye, Nicole.
I felt that way about Puff Daddy in Raisin in the Sun.
Brilliant. And the pasta he bought you was amazing. But Amanda Peet has done theater, so she got great reviews last year.
And her career is going pretty well right now.
Yes, she's doing very well.
So Robert, what's in it for Amanda Peet to sort of take some time off from a thriving movie career to do a kind of, hopelessly old-fashioned Neil Simon play,
Well, I
Barefoot
don't
in
know
the
if the
Park?
movie career is so thriving. She gets good supporting roles. I think she wants to move up to starring roles. I think she has more to prove as an actress than Julia Roberts does. I mean, from what I've heard, this is something that Julia Roberts actually always wanted to do. And I don't think it's so much that she's not doing the big movies because they're not coming to her. I think she's chosen to do fewer. I mean, she had 2 kids. She kind of backpedaled on the movie career a bit. And I think this is something, there are a lot of movie stars who want to put a Broadway show on their resume.
Yeah,
so it's going to be a big question, but she's got a good director, Joe Mantello, and he can, beat good performances out of big stars.
And this play sorry, Susan.
Don't we find that movie stars come in when they're a little long of tooth for certain roles?
That used to be the case.
Only
but
a
I think
woman
it's
would say such a thing about Julia Roberts.
I think it's exactly what Bob said, and that is, it's just a star on the resume. I think younger generation, for the first time, Elizabeth Taylor was 50, I think, when she did Little Foxes, and she couldn't get arrested in Hollywood at the time.
That's not the case with Julia Roberts.
Not at all, no. And I think it's this younger generation of actors that just find it hip and a good part of their resume to be on Broadway.
But after Denzel Washington last year flopped so badly with Julius Caesar with the critics, it's amazing any movie star is coming back to Broadway because now it doesn't have quite the luster of, hey, I'm a slumming movie star and everyone's gonna fall at my feet because I'm so famous. It doesn't work that way.
And as far as her age, I mean, her age is perfect for the role in 3 Days of Rain.
Tell us about the play, though. I mean, this is a sort of a revival. The play was done off-Broadway
Richard
several years
Greenberg
ago.
play. I forget when it was done. It was done on off-Broadway about 7 years ago. It's 2 acts. They take place in 2 time periods, which is something Greenberg does quite a bit. In the first act, we see the 2 children and the best friend of 2 famous architects. And in the second act, we see they play their parents. And so you find out, where they got wrong in the history, what they think their parents were and what their parents were.
So that means Julia Roberts is going to put silver spray in her hair and lines around there to make her look old?
No, because it's them at the age, right?
Yeah, they're always playing them in the 30s. They're in their 30s.
How does it end so I don't have to see it?
Well, there's this big brainstorm.
It's really set in the present.
I want to say, though, someone who works in the movies pointed this out to me, and I think this shows you how important Broadway, more important it's become to the entertainment business, that when an actress like Julia Roberts reaches a certain age and she's no longer the the ingenue, once upon a time they would do an independent movie. But there's so many independent movies now that it doesn't much matter. Whereas they can do this in a Broadway play, and they get more attention for doing a Broadway show than they would for some other movie at Sundance. And I think that says that Broadway has become more important than ever before in the entertainment culture.
And it's a great play. I mean, I think it's Richard Greenberg's best. I think it's such a challenge because she plays this very composed and lucid daughter of a crazy woman that she then plays, a woman that actually just went off the deep end and walked through a plate glass window at one point in front of her child as well. So she's got, I think the mother is described as Zelda Fitzgerald's more stable sister in the thought.
And we also should say it's a
great acting
It's
challenge.
a shrewd move on her part to play a part that is close to her. I mean, if she had said she's coming to Broadway in Lady Macbeth, it might have been some trouble.
Or Three Penny Opera.
Speaking of which, we have a big revival of Three Penny Opera coming up at the Roundabout, right? Studio 54. Who's in that?
Alan Cumming and Cyndi Lauper.
It's one of the strangest casts.
It's like so
this
right
spring.
that it's wrong that it's right again. I mean, the two of them and fishnets with holes in them.
And Wallace Shawn. It's Wallace
Nellie
Shawn's
McKay.
adaptation.
Well, Sean's adaptation.
And he's actually he's playing a part, a small
Does
part
anyone know
as well.
why Edie Falco dropped out of that show? Because there was never an official reason.
Well, you're the gossip columnist for the Village Voice. Can't you tell
Exactly.
us?
And you're the one for the Post, so do you know?
I get all my good stories from you. You know that. You have no idea why she dropped out?
Scheduling conflict.
Artistic differences.
She didn't realize she was also in The Sopranos.
Now, those Three Penny Operas still have currency, or is it time moved beyond this show?
I think it's a timeless work,
Yeah.
and about
anti-capitalist, strident,
but
left-wing,
avarice and lust.
For
profit.
$150 a
Right,
ticket.
for the $300 for the privileged seats for 3 penny opera.
Sorry, Barbie.
Capitalism is wrong.
the portrait of the underbelly of human motivations, I mean, it's always the same. It'll always be there. And the score is fantastic. It'll be interesting to see what Scott Elliott will do with it. Whenever he comes to Broadway, it's always a crapshoot. You never know what he's
He
gonna
works
come
so
up
well
with.
off
You're half
Broadway
right,
in
it's
small
crap.
plays, and I'm
No, I'm
Broadway.
kidding.
Yeah, with his stuff, you're right, off-Broadway with the new group, he's very predictable, excellent work, especially when he's doing the plays of Mike Leigh. But on Broadway, you never know.
Well, he's tackling Barefoot in the
Barefoot
Park,
in the Park
as
as
this
well.
season,
Yes.
right? And that seems to be right up his alley.
Which, for the life of me, I can't understand why
I
that play
signed
is
something
being
where I
done.
can't talk about that. I'm sorry. Next.
Little joke about our friend Amanda Peet, who brought a little Hollywood attitude towards
She did not.
towards the press conference.
She did not. The
where
press
some
brought a little New York Post attitude
where
to the
some
press
reporters had to sign forms saying we won't
Yes.
use her quotes without her.
Well, the kids on the boards are
approval.
saying it's actually a stinker, but it's still being worked on, and it can't be as disappointing a bore as Odd Couple, that other Neil Simon chestnut that turned out not to be
Yeah.
so relevant,
You have to
despite the ka-ching that it's bringing
Yeah,
in.
you have to think Scott Elliott has something in mind, because apparently the story is when Robin Goodman, the producer, asked him, "What do you want to do on Broadway?" he said that play immediately.
Three Penny or
No,
Barefoot?
Barefoot in the Park. I mean, that's the
Then they
story.
dragged him off to Bellevue.
Let me bring up the topic, as you brought up about the $150 to see the anti-capitalist Three Penny Opera. One issue that is becoming I think you've said, a stealth issue, Patrick. Ticket price creep. I mean, you go to the box office today, sort of the official ticket price is $110. But in fact, I see more and more of these VIP seats for $275. These American Express ads that say, if you have the Amex card, you can get Julia Roberts. If you're a regular person on a limited income, like Susan is, you cannot go to see a Broadway show anymore. Is this true?
Yeah, it's jaw-dropping. I mean, we're all spoiled, right? Because we don't pay for our tickets to begin with. But we have access to house seats. So I bought for my brother-in-law a pair of tickets for Jersey Boys. Right. And I bought a pair of tickets for Color Purple, and it sent me back about $500. And even I'm glad I got the tickets, and I think they'll have a lot of fun. But it did,
But the point is, you
make me
can get
pause.
the tickets.
Right.
I mean, Broadway is becoming so incredibly elitist with these VIP seats and these Amex things. Essentially, it seems to me they're saying to people, unless you're rich, we're not interested in having you come here.
It doesn't
it's
really
two
bother
issues,
me
like-
because it's a business, not a charity, and if the market supports it, they're going to keep doing it. And there are always ways around it. There are always ways to get twofers, to go to audience extras.
Yeah, but
Right.
they're
Or that-
talking about how Broadway's so culturally irrelevant, and then it's becoming, such a greed thing of the producers that they're. It used to be you could go and sit on the side of the front row for a reduced price. Now that's become one of the VIP seats that you're supposed to pay $300. And the posting, they've got the little type in the side of the box office in some places saying that. And
They have now the BAP seats
yeah,
behind
I mean,
the pillar,
it's-
which they
it's-
charge.
exactly. It's just,
But the show with the guy in the puppet, you'll get tickets for free. No problem with that one.
Robert, you keep tabs on the business. I mean, is the sense of producers just look at, there's a, as Michael says, there's a market for Spam-A-Lot at $250 a ticket. We're going to squeeze everything we can out of it while it's hot.
Well, that's an argument you can always use, you know, the market economy, whatever the traffic will bear. But I mean, with the big celebrity blockbusters like Odd Couple with Lane and Broderick, and now 3 Days of Rain with Julia Roberts. I mean, basically, if you don't hold an American Express card in your pocket, it's going to be very hard to get a ticket to these limited runs. And they are limited runs because the tickets went on sale for American Express owners for how many weeks? At least 2 weeks before they were on to the
sold
general
out in
public.
days,
And
yeah.
you know how many are left after Amex people have picked through them.
Nothing.
Not many.
Nothing.
So it's going to have to extend for like normal folk like, well, me, not you, Rib, not you, Michael, to get a ticket.
I've got a platinum card. Now, a show that I think you might be able to get some seats to is a new musical by Elton John called Les Stats, or Le Flop, as we call it in San Francisco.
The static.
And after he called you so nicely.
I must say, you know, I had a lovely chat with my friend Elton, exclusive access to him that those of us in our position can get. I went to see the show in San Francisco, and I thought it was pretty terrible. And Elton John called me and talked about trying to change the show and fix the show. And you know, I think he's probably on the right track. Or am I just being spun?
And we'll live beneath the stars together and forever. I beg you, make me as you are.
I think the big question was whether it was going to come in or not, and you answered that question because it got the guns of Elton John behind it. So it is definitely coming in, and we'll see what happens. To turn around a show that's in trouble is really, really, really difficult. It's like turning around a battleship in a bathtub. But it's been done before.
Have you done that?
But it's been done before, you know. And we'll see if they can pull it off. It seems like Dracula musicals seem to be snake bait.
Why don't vampire musicals work?
I think somebody should have said, okay, Dracula, Dance of the Vampires, perhaps we shouldn't do another vampire musical. Perhaps they truly suck.
Yeah, that's the big question. I mean, what is the motor behind this production? Why is it being done? It has to be, you have to think it's Elton John. Because number one, you don't want to try another vampire musical on Broadway. And number two, he's got his director, who was
Rob Jess Roth, who was fired from his last show, Aida.
from Aida. I mean, why bring that man back and use him
This is
again?
written by his old partner, Bernie Taupin. Was he his romantic partner too? I don't know. But
No, we don't
turn
know.
to you for the history of gay gossip.
But he wrote the classic lyrics for Elton John, and perhaps there's a loyalty there that he's helping Taupin have a Broadway show.
But that was
And the
Aida.
loyalty to
that was
Ross as
Aida,
well.
and this is I Bite Her.
No,
Okay.
stop.
Listen, I can tell you why it's coming to Broadway. It's really not Elton John. It's Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers wants to be a player on Broadway, the way Disney is. They have a big catalog of things that they want to mine and turn into titles. They want to turn into Broadway shows. And this is the first run at Broadway. And I suppose on paper you've got one of the most popular novels of all time, Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles, and you've got Elton John, one of the great pop composers of all time. I suppose it looked pretty good. Then you go and hire Rob Jess Roth, and it winds up being terrible. But it's really Warner Brothers trying to make a play to be on Broadway.
But let's not forget that Aida sounded like a bad idea. It got terrible reviews. They worked on it. Still got bad reviews. Still running, isn't it? Robin Gibbons. Who's in it? I don't know.
Robin Gibbons.
I think Elton
Actually
John
not
is
running.
he's a very potent force on Broadway. He's the new Andrew Lloyd Webber, whether you like that or not. He has more hits going than anybody.
He does. He does.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Let's just talk a little bit about Elton John, though, because you did a story in Show People, and I wrote about this too, about how he actually writes his shows, because he's not in the trenches, out of town, the old days, fixing the show. He's the virtual composer. He writes it from wherever he is in the world and sort of sends the song in. It's strange.
I think it shows in a way. I think any of it, because his songs are not character specific. I haven't seen Billy Elliot, so I can't.
That's the exception.
attest
Billy
to that.
Elliot is
But certainly in Aida and in, for what I've heard
Bite
from
Her.
those, is that they could be sung by any of the characters in
they're
a way.
generic.
So they're very generic, and I think that debilitates militates against it.
Well, because he's writing pop songs that he
Stability.
hopes will be spun off into hit
Yeah.
records.
Right.
Oh, we got Phil Collins coming in with Tarzan.
Right, yes, another pop composer who is the complete opposite of Elton, by the way. I understand.
He's there all the time.
Phil Collins is there all the time, writing new songs. I mean, really behaving the old-fashioned way. Another Disney blockbuster, Tarzan headed our way, do you think? Impregnable.
It could be if they get it all right. I mean, they're going to have some very difficult special effects to carry off. You know,
Done
they
by
had-
the De La Guardia people.
by the De La Guardia people, you know, and they're going to have to make Tarzan, you know, kind of whether he's going to be surfing over those vines or swinging from those vines. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff
Or
happening.
hanging from those vines, but isn't it good?
I mean, they've got an extended period of previews. I mean, it's the same number of performances, but stretched over 6 weeks because they're going to be trying to get all this technical stuff right. So, I mean, we'll see when they open.
That's a big risk, though, for this show, isn't it? I mean, they're going to be in the fishbowl of New York previews over, you know, almost 2 months.
Well, you, Michael.
You know, all the vampires who aren't at Lestat are going to be hanging around Tarzan. I mean, you know.
You also have Bob Crowley, who's doing his first directing job on Broadway.
That's the big
He's a
question.
designer.
Yeah,
And
he's
a
a great
brilliant
designer.
one.
A great designer.
A great
one.
designer.
But, you know, being able to set the tempo, being able to tell that story emotionally is the big question as to whether he'll be able to do that.
You've got a skeptical look
No,
on
I
your
think if
face
the
about
guy
this
is
show.
hot, I don't care about anything else, and neither will anyone else. If he's cute and is wearing a very low-cut loincloth, doesn't matter about the
talking
songs,
about
the
Bob
set,
Crowley,
the
right?
plot.
Look what happened to All Shook Up. That guy was pretty cute. And
He didn't take
He
it
didn't.
off.
He didn't have a loincloth on.
No loincloth.
there's some great plays.
And I
from
was
him.
very angry that he didn't.
From the kiddie show Tarzan, too, what I think is a really great play coming from London. And I would urge our viewers to, if you have an American Express card, call and get your tickets for this one now. And that is Alan Bennett's History Boys, a really wonderful play. Did you see it in London?
I haven't seen it.
You know anything
I
about
read
it,
it.
Michael?
Didn't Ben Brantley kind of not love it?
No, he loved it.
Oh, he did?
No,
Okay.
What do you? What is your sense of this play? Have you read it?
Well, I'm an Alan Bennett fan.
Yeah,
I like his
wonderful
work. I don't. It's very English. I don't know if it'll play here, but you know, I think he's a wonderful writer and storyteller.
I guess I'm the only one who saw it.
You saw it in
yeah,
London?
Yeah, I didn't
loved
see
it.
it.
Same cast here?
Yes, the bringing over. This is you could not do it without that British cast. I mean, you'd
Right.
have it's set in a high school. It's sort of a second-rate high school that wants to send more of its students to Oxford and Cambridge. So they hire a sharp, young, cynical scholar to come in and kind of punch the curriculum around to try to raise the scores of these kids so they can get in the best schools. And he goes up against a very traditional, old-fashioned teacher who just loves teaching, loves learning, and doesn't believe the purpose of an education is to get into a good school. It's to fall in love with great literature, great poetry. And it's a wonderful debate about what education is and how it plays out among these a group of schoolboys. There's no way you could do it without bringing the British cast over because it would be
It would be
It'd be the
democracy.
democracy.
it would be exactly it would be a big flop. So
Now that we've got, speaking of democracy, we've got a new Shanley play, Defiance.
That'll be
Any
off
word on that?
Broadway.
That's off Broadway.
I'm sure people are looking. If it's any good, they'll probably try to get it to Broadway. Though there are no houses right now, so where would it go?
Well, that's a problem for the theater
Real
too,
estate
right? We've
glut.
got the real estate crunch. I mean, look at Disney itself. It's going to have 4 theaters locked up: Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Tarzan, and Mary Poppins is coming. I mean, is Broadway calcifying?
Well, without real estate, to some extent, it is. Are any theaters being built? I mean,
No.
apart from why not?
Economically, it doesn't make any sense to build a theater in the city. That's what the theater I was telling
There's
me.
that rumor of that hotel being built on 45th Street and 8th Avenue with a theater in it. Is that true?
I don't know. I'm not the real estate columnist, but
Yeah.
it's an enormous expense to build a theater. On the other hand, though, my concern is that shows run a long time. I mean, even if they aren't any good, Lestat could run 10 years probably. I mean, how does there's no churning of the artistic content on Broadway if all these big musical houses are put away for not 4 years, but in some cases 10 and 15 years.
I think that is a problem.
I mean, the irony is if it's good news for the shows that are opening now, that means bad news for the shows that want to open next year. And last year we had 4 musicals that were nominated for Tonys, and they're all still running. That has led to a big logjam.
Yeah, it's hard to get that angry about the fact that shows are running a long time. This is terrible.
I remember the days when all the marquees.
They
were
used to have
dark.
marquees that said "See a Broadway show" for the fun of it. See a Broadway show if you can find one when they were completely empty. But this is all cyclical, and at some point, probably when we're still sitting here with gray hair and walkers, we'll be talking about the empty theaters. A couple of other shows we should touch on before we wrap it up: musicals. Ring of Fire, the Johnny Cash musical. Country western music has never really clicked on Broadway. Do you think
Not
this?
since Big River. I
Big
guess.
River,
River, yeah.
and Assassins had a lot of country music, but it did. I was awake. But now we've seen every possible type of jukebox musical. Mamma Mia kind of built a fake story around the music. Jersey Boys tells the story of the person who's done the music.
Right.
And now this kind of just gets to the essence of the music, I guess, by weaving a tale about Johnny Cash's essence. It's a real cash
You
cow.
saw it, didn't you? You saw it out of You saw it, didn't you?
I did see it. It's done by Richard Maltby, who did Ain't Misbehavin', and it's done very similarly to that show in that it is the essence of the man. It's Richard calls it an impressionistic look at his life. So it's not a VH1 behind the scenes music the way Jersey Boys
Right.
is, but he just strings the song together
Does Reese
to give you a
Witherspoon come out and
sense.
make a cameo? Hey, y'all.
They win.
I
You
think
seem
with that,
skeptical, Robert.
Yeah, well, the music is the big problem there. With Jersey Boys, which is the jukebox musical that reinvigorated the form and made all these other jukebox musicals book houses, I mean, it had a built-in audience, which is the state of New Jersey. I mean, you know, that's why it's a big hit. They love that music. They love those guys. I mean,
Tennessee for cat, I don't know.
I don't know, where is the core fan base of Johnny Cash in the three-state area? I'm not sure.
Well, there's a lot of sort of closet country fans around.
Well,
Aren't there? Yeah.
I
Johnny
think-
Cash's music.
You got a
was
little
awfully
hayseed
powerful.
in your hair, Susan.
I'm sure the producers hope
Plus,
so.
ex-cons like Johnny Cash.
She seems to know that with a lot of credibility there.
One other star coming to Broadway we should touch on is Harry Connick Jr. in the
Pajama.
Pajama Game. What's your sense about that show? It's in previews now. What are you hearing?
Interesting choice for him to be in this to make his Broadway debut. Of course, he wrote "Thou Shalt Not."
And thou shouldn't have.
I don't get a sense of it except that it seems like an old-fashioned show, and whether they can breathe life into it without making massive changes in the book, I don't know. I haven't seen it. It's in previews now, and I guess the sense of it is, as you were saying, the kids talking Broadway didn't like it much. I think
Michael, from what I see on Talking Broadway, he takes his shirt off, so it's all right with you, right?
All's forgiven. It's a great show. It's a classic.
also
No, I know
sits
the only
down.
changes are that the Steam Heat, the big song, is being sung by a different character.
Oh, no.
And the boss character is being made into a right-wing reactionary just so he could be redeemed at the end and get to wear his pajamas with everybody else. But they're not reinventing the wheel with the show. They're not setting it
And
at
also
Studio 54 or on Mars or anything.
They're
It
adding
is-
to it. That's the other weird thing. They're adding old numbers, so they're making it longer. which
Yeah,
is
like
Well, I
the-
hear, though, now that they've decided longer
shorter is better.
Shorter is
Shorter is
better.
always
They're pulling
better.
it back.
Please.
Yeah, exactly right.
But it's got great songs. Hey
Oh, it's
There.
a wonderful, wonderful
But they won't be
score.
playing their own instruments, so that's good.
Robert, The Wedding Singer, another musical coming based on the Adam Sandler movie. Did you go to the press preview of that?
I did
show?
not. Did you?
No, Susan did, though.
We did, yeah.
Yes,
And-
we
and
did.
I have some hopes for this because the lead producer is Margot Lyon. Her last show was Hairspray, and she's a canny producer, and
that
she
was based on
chooses
a
her
New Line
material.
film.
She chooses her material carefully, and she nurtures it along. She's brought in a new crop of like unknown composers, which is what she did in Hairspray.
And the big song has Come Out of the Dumpster, sung by Laura Benanti.
So come out of the dumpster. Don't leave me standing here. Come out of the dumpster. It's okay. The coast is clear.
All right, we got to wrap it up very quickly. Predictions. I know I'm going to put you out, make you on a limb here, but predictions for the Tony Awards. Best musical?
Color Purple.
Oh no!
She hosted, yes.
He didn't even say his own show. She did the dancer's life.
This is true.
Oprah can stuff her ballot box. She's like, you're kidding. You think The Color Purple's going to win the Tony Award? You're nuts.
Tarzan? Cheetah Rivera, The Dancer's Life?
Best musical?
I actually think Grey Gardens is going to get raves and move to Broadway because I was just in Toronto and gentlemen of a certain age of the homosexual variety are flying themselves in just to see it. Now that's serious pull.
It'll go, yeah.
Best musical?
I'm a shot in the dark wedding singer, I think.
Best musical is going to go to Jersey Boys.
For once, Susan Haskins has called it right. Jersey Boys, best musical, and I would say History Boys, best play.
Boys, boys, boys.
And with that,
And that's Broadway, folks. Michael Musto from The Village Voice, Robert Simonson, Playbill Online, and Patrick Pacheco, creator, conceiver.
And go see it. It's
Of
a
The Color
great
Purple.
Of The Color Purple.
Cheetah.
Cheetah.
She's terrific.
That's right. Are you going to do a